They say the strongest leaders are the ones who command fear. I say the strongest leaders are the ones who command hearts. In a world obsessed with power that shouts, there is a quieter force, one that heals wounds, bridges divides, and leaves a mark no weapon can erase. That force is human-friendly leadership, and it terrifies those who thrive on control. India's tradition of hospitality and compassion runs deep into its history and continues to influence the way it interacts with the world today. For centuries, Indian society has been guided by the idea that the guest is equivalent to God, a principle known as Atithi Devo Bhava. This is not just a cultural formality. It reflects a deeply rooted value system that prioritizes respect, warmth, and generosity toward others, regardless of nationality, religion, or background. This mindset has played a significant role in shaping India's reputation on the global stage, creating an image of a nation that is open, approachable, and willing to engage with the world through mutual respect rather than confrontation. When people from other countries visit India, they often speak about the personal touch they experience, whether it is being welcomed into someone's home with food and conversation, or the eagerness of strangers to help when needed. These everyday interactions leave lasting impressions, building bridges between cultures that cannot be achieved through formal diplomacy alone. This consistent friendliness has become an asset in international relations as it naturally encourages trust and cooperation. It is harder to take an adversarial stance against a country that is widely known for treating people well. Beyond personal hospitality, India's compassion extends to its approach in foreign policy and global crises. Historically, India has offered aid and support to nations in need, even when its own resources were limited. Whether it is sending medical teams abroad, providing disaster relief, or contributing to United Nations peacekeeping missions, India has shown that its commitment to human welfare goes beyond its borders. These actions reinforce the perception of India as a responsible and caring global player, which in turn strengthens diplomatic ties and encourages collaboration. This tradition of compassion also influences India's large diaspora, which serves as informal ambassadors around the world. Millions of Indians living and working abroad carry with them the values they grew up with: respect for others, generosity, and an inclusive worldview. Through professional contributions, community service, and cultural exchange, they often create positive associations with India in the minds of people from other nations. Over time, this shapes a kind of soft power that is difficult to measure, but undeniably effective in enhancing India's global standing. In a world where political and economic relationships can be tense and transactional, India's approach stands out. Its hospitality and compassion do not mean weakness. They are part of a strategic strength that builds goodwill and reduces hostility. By consistently showing empathy and openness, India makes it easier to form alliances, negotiate agreements, and find common ground with other nations. These cultural strengths have helped India navigate complex global challenges while maintaining a level of respect and influence that goes beyond military or economic might. Ultimately, This long-standing tradition is more than just a cultural trait. It is a powerful diplomatic tool that continues to shape and strengthen India's relationships across the globe. Kindness, when viewed as a deliberate choice rather than a passive trait, becomes a powerful form of influence. In the context of a nation, kindness is not about submission or weakness. It is about setting a tone of engagement that earns trust, builds credibility, and shapes the perceptions of others. When a country consistently treats other nations and their citizens with fairness, respect, and empathy, it fosters relationships based on mutual benefit rather than fear or coercion. This kind of influence is subtle but enduring, and it makes a nation far more difficult to control because alliances and goodwill are built on voluntary cooperation rather than dependency or intimidation. At a human level, kindness disarms suspicion. People are more likely to listen to and work with those who treat them well. When this principle is scaled to the level of diplomacy and international relations, it has the same effect. A nation that engages with others through aid, cultural exchange, and fair trade is seen as a partner rather than a rival. This creates a layer of resilience against political or economic pressure because the network of positive relationships serves as a form of protection. Other countries are less inclined to support aggressive measures against a nation they trust and respect. The power of kindness also lies in its ability to inspire rather than dictate. Nations that rely solely on force to assert themselves often face resistance, both open and hidden. In contrast, a country that invests in humanitarian aid, educational initiatives, and collaborative problem solving wins hearts before it ever needs to win arguments. This influence cannot be easily overturned by policy shifts or leadership changes in other nations because it is grounded in people-to-people connections as much as in official agreements. Furthermore, kindness generates a form of moral authority. When a nation has a track record of acting in the interest of others, it gains credibility when it speaks out on global issues. Its opinions carry more weight because they are backed by actions that reflect genuine concern rather than self-interest. This moral standing can be a decisive factor in negotiations, international forums, and crisis situations, giving the nation an edge without the need for threats or ultimatums. Another reason kindness makes a nation harder to control is that it reduces the avenues for manipulation. Aggressive or exploitative powers often rely on division, resentment, or dependency to exert influence over others. A nation that builds its global identity on mutual respect and cooperation leaves less room for such tactics to succeed. If other countries and their populations genuinely value the relationship, they are more likely to stand by that nation in the face of external pressure. In the long run, kindness as a form of power is not about avoiding conflict altogether, but about changing the terms of engagement. It shifts the focus from dominance to partnership, from short-term gains to long-term stability. This approach builds a foundation of trust and loyalty that cannot be imposed from the outside, making the nation not only influential, but also resilient in an unpredictable world. power that comes from cooperation rather than aggression challenges the very foundations of confrontational politics. In traditional power dynamics, influence is often measured by the ability to pressure, threaten, or overpower others. Whilst such tactics may bring short-term results, they often breed resentment, mistrust, and instability. In contrast, when a nation demonstrates that collaboration can produce greater benefits for all involved, it disrupts the assumption that force is the most effective path to achieving goals. This shift not only changes the immediate political landscape, but can also inspire long-term changes in how states, organizations, and individuals approach problem solving. Cooperation works better than confrontation because it aligns interests rather than pits them against each other. When nations work together toward common objectives, whether in trade, security, environmental protection, or public health, they create solutions that are more sustainable. The outcomes of cooperative efforts tend to last longer because all parties have a stake in their success. In confrontational politics, by contrast, the victory of one side often comes at the cost of the other's loss, creating an unstable arrangement that may collapse as soon as the balance of power shifts. Another advantage of cooperative power is that it fosters goodwill, which can serve as a buffer in times of crisis. When nations or leaders have a history of constructive engagement, they are more likely to receive understanding, assistance, or diplomatic support when challenges arise. This makes them less vulnerable to isolation or punitive measures from others. In a world where alliances can determine the outcome of economic or political disputes, such goodwill is an invaluable asset. Cooperation also produces practical results that confrontation rarely achieves. Complex global problems such as climate change, pandemics, and international terrorism cannot be solved through unilateral action or coercion alone. They require shared resources, knowledge, and coordinated action. By proving that collaboration produces tangible benefits, a nation sets an example that can undermine the appeal of aggressive posturing. Other nations may see that working together yields more consistent and positive results than a constant cycle of threats and retaliation. Furthermore, cooperative power strengthens internal stability. Citizens who see their country engaging positively on the world stage often feel a sense of pride and security. This can translate into stronger national unity and public support for government initiatives. On the other hand, constant confrontation can lead to fear, economic strain, and political polarization at home, weakening a nation from within. Most importantly, cooperation challenges the idea that politics must be a zero-sum game. It replaces the narrative of winners and losers with one of shared progress. This mindset can be contagious, influencing not just international relations, but also the way political leaders and citizens interact within their own societies. By showing that mutual respect and joint action lead to better outcomes, cooperative power offers a powerful counter-narrative to aggression, proving that the path to real and lasting influence lies not in domination, but in partnership. India's global diaspora and cultural influence form a network of connections that extends far beyond its geographical borders, carrying with it a set of values rooted in human friendliness, inclusivity, and respect for diversity. With over 30 million people of Indian origin living in countries across every continent, the Indian diaspora is one of the largest in the world. This community is not just a demographic statistic, it is a living channel through which India's traditions, ethics, and ways of life are introduced into foreign societies. The impact is often subtle but profound, shaping perceptions of India in ways that political speeches or economic deals alone cannot achieve. One of the most striking features of this influence is that it operates independently of political conditions. While trade agreements can be suspended and diplomatic ties strained, the everyday interactions between members of the Indian diaspora and their local communities continue without interruption. Whether through professional collaboration, neighborhood relationships, or cultural celebrations, the values of openness, hospitality, and cooperation find their way into people's lives. This human-to-human connection is resistant to sanctions or restrictions because it is not a formalized process. It is embedded in daily life. The Indian diaspora has established itself in diverse fields such as technology, medicine, academia, business, and the arts. Their contributions not only strengthen the economies of the countries where they reside, but also build a reputation for India as a source of talent, skill, and innovation. Alongside professional achievements, these individuals often introduce cultural practices from food and music to yoga and festivals that reflect a deep appreciation for harmony and community. Events like Diwali, Holi, and International Yoga Day are now celebrated in many countries, often involving people of all backgrounds, thus promoting cross-cultural understanding. Cultural influence also extends through media, literature, and cinema. Bollywood films, Indian authors, and music artists reach audiences worldwide, often portraying themes of family bonds, resilience, and compassion. These narratives reinforce the image of India as a culture that values relationships and moral principles. Such portrayals can be more persuasive in shaping perceptions than political messaging, as they appeal directly to emotions and shared human experiences. Another dimension of this influence is the philanthropic work undertaken by the diaspora. Indian origin communities frequently engage in charitable activities, both locally and internationally. From funding schools and hospitals to supporting disaster relief efforts, these initiatives demonstrate a commitment to service and upliftment that transcends national boundaries. They enhance the perception of Indians as contributors to global well-being, not just participants in economic or political systems. In essence, India's diaspora acts as a bridge between cultures, facilitating dialogue and mutual respect. Because these relationships are rooted in personal interactions and shared experiences, they remain largely unaffected by the ebb and flow of international politics. This resilience makes the spread of India's human-friendly values both durable and far-reaching, ensuring that even in times of diplomatic tension, the core message of empathy, inclusivity, and cooperation continues to reach hearts and minds across the world. Human-friendly leadership is often misunderstood by those who equate strength with dominance and toughness with hostility. In reality, the ability to lead with empathy, fairness, and respect is a profound form of strategic strength. It builds trust, inspires loyalty, and creates a foundation for cooperation that cannot be easily dismantled. While aggressive or hardline tactics may produce short-term gains, they often come at the cost of lasting relationships and long-term stability. In contrast, leadership rooted in human values is sustainable because it nurtures bonds that endure beyond the tenure of any single government or the intensity of any immediate crisis. One of the key reasons human-friendly leadership is strategically powerful is that it addresses both the practical and emotional needs of people. When leaders genuinely care about the welfare of their citizens and partners, they make decisions that balance policy goals with human impact. This creates a sense of inclusion and respect, which in turn strengthens unity and resilience in international relations. Such leadership attracts allies who value mutual respect and equitable partnerships, making it easier to navigate complex challenges without resorting to threats or coercion. This approach also builds a reservoir of goodwill that can be drawn upon in difficult times. Nations led by individuals who consistently act in the interest of the greater good are more likely to receive support from other countries and international organizations when they face economic, political, or environmental crisis. This support may come in the form of favorable trade terms, diplomatic backing, or humanitarian aid, all of which are easier to secure when a leader's track record inspires trust. Human-friendly leadership also has the advantage of adaptability. Hardline tactics are often rigid, relying on intimidation or control, which can fail when circumstances change. In contrast, leaders who prioritize cooperation and understanding can adjust their strategies without losing credibility, because their relationships are built on respect rather than fear. This flexibility is crucial in a fast-changing world where unexpected events like pandemics, climate disasters, or economic shocks require swift, collaborative responses. Furthermore, such leadership outlasts political cycles because it cultivates values and systems that extend beyond the leader's term. Policies rooted in fairness, transparency, and compassion tend to be supported by the public and maintained by successive administrations, regardless of political affiliation. This creates a continuity of approach that reinforces a nation's stability and reliability in the eyes of the global community. Perhaps most importantly, human-friendly leadership inspires others to follow suit. When a leader shows that strength can be exercised without cruelty and authority can be maintained without fear, it challenges the prevailing notion that politics must be a constant contest of domination. This can have a ripple effect, influencing other leaders and then even shaping the expectations of citizens worldwide. By proving that empathy and strategy are not opposites, but allies, human-friendly leaderships sets a standard that can endure far beyond any one moment in political history. One day, the speeches will fade, the hardline tactics will crumble, and the flags of confrontation will be lowered. But the bonds built on respect, kindness, and shared humanity will still stand untouched by time, untouched by politics. In the end, history does not remember those who ruled through fear. It remembers those who led with humanity and whose strength outlived their own era.